Do you watch a lot of horror films?
I try to keep up with them if I can, yeah.
Do you watch more, let's say, retro, or do you watch more current?
In terms of retro horror movies, I think I've covered the basics that I have to cover. I don't know if I passionately consume them the way I should. I try to keep up with the modern ones that are coming out, because it would be embarrassing not to. But with the old ones, I would say maybe I've seen under 100 of them, 50 of them or something. Not like as many as a lot of my fellow horror filmmakers watch, for sure.
So is there anything about the older films that you get nostalgic about or miss? I mean, I was just watching a bunch of old Humphrey Bogart films, and it was just so wonderful how you could just be focused on the acting and the dynamics between the characters. I realize that's not horror. A lot of them were mystery, but it feels like so much of that is taken away these days.
And why, do you think?
Maybe just focus on really cool effects and having sort of larger than life sort of experiences, where I kind of miss that like quiet story, but hey, that's just me, I don't know.
That is probably the case, that with the older movies, people had more patience and there was less reliance on the spectacle, right? Because the effects just weren't as advanced as that. So it had to be storytelling and it had to be acting and all that. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like spectacle. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe we should remake some of the old ones. Not just the old slasher movies, not just make Friday the 13th for the 50th time, but do some of the quiet old ones, see how the audience would react to that. Be an experiment.
Do you think that's a product of just how it's a spectacle every time we turn on the internet? You know, there's so many things, notifications.
I think so. With Netflix and all the patience of people, I think it has become so much shorter. It's like, get to the point. I'll give you, it used to be 10 minutes. I think now it's probably a minute. I see that with myself. If I flick through Netflix, something amazing better happens within the first 90 seconds, or there are 2,000 other, movies and shows and whatever on offer, and I'll switch to one of them. And I think that's become more and more extreme through the years. I don't know where that's going to go in the next 10 years. It's going to be interesting.
What do you miss about cinema from whether it's 10 years ago? I mean, you can definitely see in increments, like the 2000s, there was definitely, it seemed like a different style versus 1970s, 80s.
I mean, what I miss about the 70s is that there was a real courage for devastating endings. I think we talked about that last time during the interview, that there's such a thrill in watching a movie and you genuinely don't know if the protagonists are going to be okay or not, which I think was very much the case in the 70s. You didn't know. They would just kill the protagonist off in the last minute and you just sit there devastated. They don't do that so much anymore. They didn't. I think they lost that during the 80s. And then in the 90s, it was always more, everything had to be kind of wrapped up kind of neatly, all the way down to Seven, which I think had that negative ending at some point, and then the studio tested it and said the audience can't process it, so we need some kind of positive wrap-up on the whole thing. I would love if that came back, if that unpredictability and that kind of danger came back from the 70s. Let's see.
Do you think too, because now there's the opportunity for a franchise, and so if you kill off that beloved character, then...
I think the franchise is one of the considerations in the bigger movies. But then franchises have carried on with different characters. But I think what has happened is the anthology idea that we've become much more comfortable with, that you can now carry on a franchise, the Saw franchise, let's say. Jigsaw has been dead for 5 movies or something, and they still kind of make movies with it. And it's so much name recognition now that it's maybe not even that much attachment to the protagonist anymore as it used to be. Thinking about it now, right? Because it's more marketing, because what's being marketed is the name and the franchise, and not like in The Conjuring, there's now the whole Conjuring universe, which pumps out movie after movie after movie, but it's not even that there's one protagonist that is pulled all the way through. People are less attached to the characters than they are to the marketing of the franchise, which is maybe also a difference to what it used to be like, where people got more attached to the protagonist.
Yeah, we were just interviewing another filmmaker the other day, and they talked about how in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies that Freddy almost became a parody eventually, because it was like this, sort of gimmick all of a sudden. So that's interesting.
But that's maybe that's okay because it's a joyful parody. People were such fans of his that then it's okay to make them that much bigger than life. Same for, I think Evil Dead 2 is a total comedy, whereas Evil Dead is kind of more serious. I think once you have people on board, I totally understand the impulse to kind of take everything over the top and see where it goes. It's just hard to come back from that, obviously. Once you've gone there, how do you rein it back in unless you make a true remake and restart the show like Halloween did or something like that?
Have you gone to any horror cons?
No. No, but I want to.
I was surprised. People are actually very polite.
I imagine, yes.
They were very polite, and like there wasn't, at least the ones that I attended, there wasn't this weird sort of LA like competitive vibe where I've gone to other things that are maybe more, would say, high culture or whatever, and that's not the case. I just found that very interesting.
Yeah. I have that with horror fans, that the ones that I talk to are very soft-spoken, are very smart, are very gentle. Everything that you would imagine they wouldn't be from the cliche. It's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I wonder what that is. You think that whatever, I mean, I don't know. There's probably a million ways to analyze why, but I was just taken aback. I was surprised.
Yeah.